your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I am Richard Dugan, and it is a pleasure to have you with us, along with our very special guest who is joining us to have a very interesting conversation, I guarantee you, and they're all interesting. Dr. Maurice Turmel is my guest, and he has a book out that fascinated me just by the title. It has to do with breaking the spell of religion and healing the trauma. And I guess you go by Dr. Mo, but thank you so much for joining us on the program. This, I think, is going to be a fascinating conversation.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, Richard. Yes.
You and I, our roots, and I use the term philosophically speaking,
Yes.
as opposed to religion. We're going to get into that in a moment. You and I come from, so to speak, the same source, Catholicism. Born and raised. Now, it's interesting how when I was a 16-year-old kid delivering newspapers, and I delivered the morning papers in Phoenix, and they were huge back then, huge. And I get home one morning, and I go back to bed. And my mother comes in and says, "Hey, it's time to get up to go to Mass, 10 o'clock Mass." And I said, I'm exhausted. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Now, this time she said, as opposed to the previous times, "Okay, all right, that's fine." And it wasn't until I got into my 20s when I asked her, "Why did you do that?" And she said that she said, "I didn't want you to push away from the church." Well, I never have. That's not to say that I'm a practicing Catholic, because as you and I have shared, and our listeners know, I have studied a wide variety of the different philosophies around the globe. However, Catholicism still holds a warm place in my heart because of the ritual, the tradition, and the ceremony. Those are things that I personally believe we need in our lives. Not the Catholicism, but the ritual, tradition, and ceremony that makes each day, week, month, year, those milestones mean even more. And there's something to that. And maybe we'll get into that here in the program. First thing I want to ask you, though, Maurice, is what is your definition of religion?
Broadly speaking, and it's probably going to come across as a negative view, but it's an organization created by men in particular, and designed to basically corner people into a particular system and a particular set of facts, real or created, and the whole thing strikes me these days more as a business model than as than what religion portends to be. And I say that because religion has capitalized on our need for community. And I think that's what I hear you talking about.
Mhm.
These definitions that you just provided. It's about community, our need to be with each other. Religion, the one that I grew up in, is based on a set of claimed facts, and some of which are just in my mind outrageous and just strike total disbelief in me these days. For example, being born with original sin. Really? How does that happen? I've always suggested to people, if that's true, go to the neonatal ward of a hospital and tell all those babies they have original sin, and see how you feel about that. But these kinds of doctrinaire things that encapsulates people, and the most disturbing part is that our religion is better than their religion, and our religion is right and their religion is wrong, and however you construct the facts. And last week or 2 weeks ago, I was talking to a young Pentecostal man, and he was brought up in that tradition, and he said, our religion is the right religion, and yours, you Catholics, are all wrong. And so the religions are systems, and they capitalize on our need to be part of a community, and to be with each other. And they give a profile or a framework of rules to follow. So there's nothing wrong with being good to each other. There's nothing wrong, with helping out our community. There's nothing wrong with supporting different issues and different groups of people and underprivileged people. There's nothing wrong with those things. What's wrong with it is to state emphatically that our system is right and their system is wrong. But the worst part is, and this is why I call my book Breaking the Spell of Religion, my experience was I was turned against myself. I was taught from an early age not to trust my feelings, especially if they went against the doctrine of the religion or the precepts of the religion. So psychologically, I was taught to turn away from my own feelings, only trust what the church was teaching me, and follow those rules. And what I gained, or what I took from that as a child, is I have to be perfect. Somehow I have to be perfect, and if I'm not perfect, then I've failed. And of course, well, if you fail, then you can get to go to confession. Well, I did all of those things, but when psychology came into my life, I realized how those very things, those very definitions, take people captive. In my case, that was the feeling. You take people captive into the system, and the system has its forced, rigid requirements, and you follow them, whether you agree with them or not, because you're told repeatedly, just have faith, just have faith. Well, what is important to me at this stage of my life, and psychology took me there. It didn't take me into atheism or agnosticism. It took me into trusting the deeper layers of my own self, my deepest self, my spiritual self. And as I started to understand that spiritual dimension, things made sense to me. And the only phrase that I hang on to from Jesus of Nazareth is, the kingdom is within. Boy, do I get that now? Do I understand that now?
Mhm.
Because that message says, trust yourself. And then as you get in touch with that deeper layer of your own spirituality, you're getting in touch with the global spiritual energy that animates all life. And as far as I'm concerned, all life, including our pets, including the grasses that grow in the trees, including all of that. And we're part of that beautiful energetic matrix, and we're part of each other, whether what color we are, or whether what tradition of origin we came from. So that's kind of my broad view take.
Well, it's fascinating. You brought up a number of things there, especially the one about perfection as a broadcaster in a Christian radio station, and having what I consider to be an open mind. My boss, when I left, he referred to me as a casualty of Christian radio because I wasn't towing the party line.
Oh,
which I couldn't do. And that was his perspective. And, I respect his perspective. I just don't agree with it. But I dealt with that concept of perfection. And
yes.
I remember reading in the New Testament, be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. And I thought, what does that mean, that perfection, And in the Old Testament, there's the phrase, there's what's written, I am that I am. Well,
Yeah.
now, God, at least my concept of the creator, the great divine designer of the universe, um, is neither good nor bad, neither right nor wrong, neither white nor black. Okay.
Mhm.
And I thought about that. I took all of that away and I'm going, okay, well, then what does it mean to be perfect? And I took that part from the Old Testament and I realized for myself,
Mhm.
perfection isn't doing the right thing or the wrong thing. It's just being who I am. And it has nothing to do with actions or words. It's just right this moment, you, Maurice, and I, we
Yeah.
are perfect because
Yes.
we are here,
Yeah.
because we are who we are.
Yes.
And it was fascinating to kind of come to that realization. One other element that we can talk about too, which the whole thing about original sin, it is said in the Old Testament, that the sins of the father are passed on to the sins of the son to the seventh generation. End of story.
Mm.
The only downside is, of course, that according to those writings, everybody sins, and so it just keeps getting perpetuated. I don't know about original sin, and I kind of agree with you about the whole neonatal intensive care unit, or just going to the
Mhm.
to nursery and so forth, and saying you're
Yeah.
all gonna die, you're going to hell,
Yeah.
unless,
Yeah.
and so forth. But it's just it was a great education. I often say about that religious radio station, it was the greatest education I was ever paid for, because I learned about not only comparative religions, and I would probably modify that to say sects of Christianity, but I learned about sociology, psychology, politics, and the list. Along with, I actually did learn a little broadcasting along the way too. And it's
Mm.
fascinating to me how I would hear people talking on these different programs about how they came out of this sect or that sect or the other sect because, as you have well stated, that religion was the wrong one and they finally found the right one. My eldest sister, who was born and raised Catholic, when she met her husband to be, she left the church and went to become a member of, I don't know if you're familiar with the Church of Christ, but it's almost at the opposite ends of the spectrum from Catholicism. Because if it's not in the box, we don't talk about it. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I mean, I respect her choice because that's what she chose to do for whatever the reasons were.
Yeah.
But when we talk about breaking this spell, we'll dive into this. Um, I guess maybe the first thing that we need to recognize or take a look at is the um, I guess the only word I can think of is the abuses on the part of the organization. Because I found at that station that the individuals that I associated with,
Yeah.
and it was shocking to me at first, and I was so delighted as began to learn, none of them believed exactly the same way. And it
Yeah.
gave me hope. It gave me hope. Um, so
You're
how
talking
do,
about
go ahead,
you're
please.
talking
I'll have you
you're
jump in,
talking
please.
about you're talking about the process of indoctrination,
Hmm.
and that's a term that when I was growing up Catholic, that was used to describe sects like the Moonies and all of these other radical crazy sects that are allegedly religious.
Hmm.
But the indoctrination process is the same across all different sects of Christianity, and perhaps the other religions that you would know more about than I would. But the common denominators are they wrap you in their definition of who and what you are, and you have to believe the system rather than moreover than yourself.
Yeah.
And in psychology and spirituality, getting to know yourself and trusting yourself is the best thing you can do. It's the best gift you can give to the planet, because your authenticity will then inspire and enhance and encourage authenticity in other people. It's like saying, hey, being who you are, feeling what you feel, expressing what you express, as long as you're not harming other people, and loving yourself is okay. Loving yourself to the exclusion of no one. Not loving yourself like a narcissist who is, I'm okay, but you're not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that at all. And self-acceptance means, wow, now, and you've described it in your own terminology, but you're describing what I talk about in the book and what I feel. And this is the getting to know ourselves is at the feeling level. The indoctrination level is all applied rules and regulations, and they become the cage in the box in which we now live, and everything outside the box is wrong and everything inside is right. But while we're in the box, we tend to screw up, so we're never going to be perfect. That's kind of the contradiction, and that's another. It's another term that describes how it feels to be in those boxes. The term is double bind. The opposites are supposed to be working together, but it's impossible because they're opposites. According to George Carlin, who I'm sure you know,
Oh,
great
yes.
comedian. He lists all the sins and fabrications and mistakes and dubiousness of our experience of life and our being, and then at the end he says, "But God loves you." But God loves you. How can God love me if I'm so broken, if I'm so defective, if I'm such a sinner? How can God love me? And the answer is, you need to love yourself. And if you're taught that from the beginning, loving yourself to the exclusion of no one, in other words, we're all equal. We could call it perfectly imperfect. And your form of saying it is, we are perfect just as we are. But
Yeah.
that's the punchline.
Yeah.
Just as we are. Be who you are, and that comes at the feeling level, not the intellectual level. The intellectual level explains what we feel. It's there for us to put into words and put into descriptive phrases, put into art what we feel. But what we feel is the powerhouse. And,
Mm.
and that's the root of our energy. That's our connection to source.
Yeah.
That is for me, and perhaps for you, the source of the divine. Right there within us.
Yeah.
It's already there. We don't have to pray to someone sitting in a chair up in a cloud and judging us. We don't have to do that. We tune in and we connect. We connect with that part of ourselves. We connect with that energy. And we are that energy. And in your terms, we are perfect. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love George Carlin's breakdown of the Ten Commandments. That just makes me laugh to no end. And I will tell you that I've grappled with those same concepts of perfection versus being loved by the Creator. And of course, I do take it that you believe in a Creator. I often say that as far as I know right now, I did not create myself. Okay,
Yeah.
as far as I know. All right.
Uh,
Greg Brayton on this program talked from his book, The Healing Power of Belief. He said that one day we will no longer believe, we will know.
yeah.
And I have a funny feeling that's probably on what some people would conceive of as the other side. My father, for example, who has passed, and my elder sister, they know. They don't believe anymore. They know.
Yeah.
Now, the other side of that coin is there are people who don't believe. They think that when death arrives and you leave the body, it's lights out. To which I say, okay, if that is true, we're never going to know it because it's lights out. We will no longer exist in any form, in any way, shape, or form. However, I'm sure you have had this internal thought and process that I personally do not believe that the universe, this existence, and myself are an accident. Why would we be going through all of these machinations and so forth and trying to understand self and what have you if after it's all said and done and the body dies, stops functioning, there's nothing? It makes no sense. It's totally illogical to me. All right,
Yeah,
now that's the logical brain
that's
given
fine.
to me by the creator, you
That,
know?
that's fine. That's fine. These um, let me give you a little view here of
Mhm.
and I'm going to include you in this description. But
Okay.
all right, so the difference between belief and knowledge is it's actually a great subject in philosophy, and one of my philosophy acquaintance, which from the local university here, he's passed on, but he did talks on that, and it's very 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 powerful. And when a person can say to themselves, I don't just believe anymore, I know that that is the deepest connection to our inner self as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to pretend with you for a minute. We're on the other side. There's a queue, because we're waiting for bodies to be manufactured down below, and
Hmm.
we're going to go and insert ourselves into a situation. And maybe we're given, or we take on, okay, what's my mission going to be this time? And I'm like I said, I'm just guessing, but I'm going to guess and I'm going to include you in this. Our mission this time is going to be to go through that indoctrination thing in Catholicism, let's say, or whatever religion, to understand it inside out and backwards, to survive it, to question it, to come out of it on the other side, to see all its thorniness and all its abscesses and its harm, to see all of that, to describe all of that, and to put it into a context where it's understood in a more realistic sense. No more of this superstitious overview or overcloud, but what it is. And and the reason that you and I chose to do this, as I'm pretending, is because as you and I have come to terms with that part of the experience, we're now at the stage where, hey, I've got to share this with people because there are people looking for answers to the same questions that
Hmm.
you and I negotiated when we started to question our system, when we started to question where we came from. And look where you are now and look where I am now. I have my book, but I did 30 years of practice working with people in pain, and you have your podcast and you have your radio show experience, and you're sharing what you know with people, and you in particular are bringing people onto your stage, and because they talk about stuff that you're interested in and that resonates with who you are. In other words, your mission and my mission is to pass on what we've learned and help other people find their own way.
Hmm.
And our message is to trust your deepest self, to trust that part of you. And you absolutely, so in my schema, there's 3 stages. The first stage, and when you start questioning things, is self-reflection. The second stage is self-acceptance. And the third stage is self-love to the exclusion of no one. And the self-acceptance part, for guys like us who came through Catholicism, it's hard because we were taught that we were imperfect, we were sinners, we were defective in so many different ways. We couldn't see outside that particular cloud. We couldn't see anything, but we had to wade our way through there in order to come to this point where you can do what you're doing now and what I can do what I'm doing now. But let's say 40 or 50 years ago, for myself anyway, at a lot younger age, I was clueless to what you and I are talking about now. But I can see the path and I can see my path. And when I meet people like you, I can see that your journey is not dissimilar. It's in practical terms, yes, it's very, very different. But in the spiritual sense and in the experiential sense, it's very, very much the same, because you've learned to come to terms with yourself and accept yourself, and to use your terms, you're perfect just as you are. That's self-acceptance.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Now, one interesting twist on that self-acceptance and the perfection is that as perfect as I am right now, I believe that there is always room for improvement. You know, that process of a self-growth, and we promote on this program, encouraging people to spend time during this particular period in our history, the 2020s, which I refer to as the decade of perfect vision. Started out with the first year, 2020, the year of perfect vision, encouraging people to spend some time going within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still small voice. And we're going to talk more about that as we continue talking with Dr. Maurice Turmel, and we're talking about his book, Breaking the Spell of Religious Trauma, here on Tell Me Your Story.
This must be your destiny. Forgive yourself. Life ain't what it used to be. Forgive yourself. Just let go of hypocrisy. Forgive yourself. It's time to set your heart free. Where are you going? What are you doing? What's in your heart there? Are you still brewing? Let go, my friend, and that will bring it to an end. It's about love. Here is your sacred destiny. It's about love. This is what life's supposed to be. It's about love. How else are you gonna see? It's about love. What your life is meant to be. Where are you going? What are you doing? What's in your heart there? Are you still brewing? Let go, my friend, and that will bring it to an end. Time ain't what it used to be. Forgive yourself. No one else can set you free. Forgive yourself. So let go and be happy. Forgive yourself. Let power choose your destiny. Where are you going? What are you doing? What's in your heart there? Are you still brewing? Let go, my friend, and that will bring it to an end. It's about love. Forget about what used to be. It's about love. Your new heart is your destiny. It's about love. Just let go of the apple tree. It's about love. God's heart is your own, you see. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself.
I'm Richard Dugan along with Dr. Maurice Turmel, and we're talking about breaking the spell of religion. And the whole aspect, as you have already spoken so eloquently about, is that aspect of trusting self. And of course, we aren't taught to do that from an early age, especially if we're raised in a particular philosophy that teaches us about the creation of the universe and certain spiritual aspects. And we'll get into that. The one thing that just came into my head was something that I was sharing with one of these folks there at the station that I was working at back in the 80s and early 90s. This was during the heyday of televangelism. And, I was already studying, I was reading constantly Paramahansa Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And I asked the person I was talking with, did you know that Christianity is a metaphysical philosophy or religion? They said, oh, no, 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 that's not right. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Do you even know the definition of the word metaphysical? And they said, well, no, I guess not. It has to do with being beyond the physical. And Christianity, in any of its forms, as it is being taught from the ancient wisdom teachings that I refer to them as, Dr. Mo, that's what it talks about. The life beyond this one. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all its righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Go within and listen to that still small voice. Follow your heart's desire. Those are all internal things. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this gentleman, John Noe. He wrote a book called The Apocalypse Conspiracy. Basically, he was saying in his book that Christians have been taken down a primrose lane. They've been lied to, basically, about so much. Now, he was still a Christian. He was still one of those who believes and so forth. And Jesus is his Lord and Savior. Okay, fine. But he also began to do the, I guess you might call it the eschatological work, which I then followed from his book because I didn't want to say, well, John Noe said this and John Noe said that. I wanted to make that knowledge mine. Yeah. So I took the sections of his book and I opened my Strong's Concordance, and I began to find that what he was saying was absolutely correct. And this is assuming we accept that, okay, the Bible that I have in front of me is accurate to the best of their ability, and that Strong's Concordance is the same. And the one thing that really struck me was, as you probably know, about the teachings of the end of the world and the rapture. And Paul talks about this, and it's and they shall be caught up to meet him in the air in the clouds of glory. Well, all of the research John had done from front to back of the Bible basically told him, number one, that it was all an internal process, all of it. Number one. Number two, that passage does not speak of a physical lifting up of the human body. It had to do with an internal transformation. And number three, when people talk about the second, number two coming of Jesus, there's nowhere in the Bible that it says number two. It says he will return, but it doesn't say how many times. And being an internal process, it means that if we choose to, hear the words and maybe the red letter edition of the Bible, we will have him return to us over and over and over again with the message that he and many others brought. And it really opened my mind up to a whole lot of new things. Yes. And it's only because I chose to read what he had to say, and then I chose to do the same research that he did, that it's now mine. It's not John's, it's mine. Yeah. And one final thing, and I'll have you elaborate, because I know I pack way too much in a lot of this stuff. Yeah. It took me 5 years to release myself internally from the concepts of good and evil, the devil, and hell. You want to believe that that's the reality? I say you create it in this world, in your life, if you choose to.
Yeah.
And I feel from all of those aspects, I feel freer today than I have ever been because I've chosen, and that's what my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life, is all about. I made a choice that because none of what they were telling me, the answers to my questions made sense, I went and I searched elsewhere as well as inside.
Your journey is well described there. It's you know it's like you climbed up one side of a mountain and I climbed up the other side, and when we get to the top, the view is the same. But
Yeah.
your journey was very individual, as is mine. But your journey took you inward, as did mine. All the negativities and the things that I had to deal with to come out of that, negative self image of myself. Um, once I engaged in the process, and it's a step by step thing, and we dig deeper into ourselves in layers, and there's deeper layers and deeper layers and deeper layers. Without a doubt, the spiritual layer is permanent as far as I'm concerned, and I think you agree with that.
Mm.
That's who we are, and so and I take solace and comfort in a lot of the reports from people who've had near-death experiences, or they're in an operating room and they're hovering above their body, or some experience where their spiritual self is looking at their physical self. And I've heard enough of that, and I've talked to enough people who have gone through those kinds of experiences. I just accept that's just, for me, that's a fact. That
Yeah.
energy that animates this body, it'll probably be has probably been in here on Earth in other bodies, and probably will be here for more. And maybe a different view of the return of Jesus Christ is that we become Christed, and and it's our function of coming to terms with our spiritual energy, and that's the second coming. And I think we're part of. There's an awakening process, an energetic awakening process, where at some point, a large enough population of the earth is going to understand that we are spiritual entities having physical experiences.
Mm.
And as spiritual entities, we are eternal. And as spiritual entities, we have lots of different kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
And then this, there's this story. What I recall from religious stuff is there was talk of this thing called the fall. What was the fall? Well, as I understand it now, the fall was a fall in consciousness.
Mm.
So that at some point in the past, humanity was in direct connection with the energetic forces, the energy, the divine energy, the source energy, and we knew it just like we knew the back of our hand. It was normal. The fall was a fall in consciousness, and now our identities, humanities generally, has been, the physical and who we are as physical beings. And, while we're attached to things like money and power and stuff, then, that means that perspective is dominated by the physical. But when we connect and understand that energetic source that is us, that divinity that is us, it flips your brain because, and like I said, it comes in stages. But it flips. Your awakening comes in stages. But now, if you understand and accept that you're a spiritual being having a physical experience, then your physical experiences brought you to this level of understanding. You needed to be in this body, but the purpose of it was to be in this body, understanding that you're spiritual. Period. This is who you are. And the body is temporary. It's made of the stuff of the earth, right? Because it returns to whatever all those microbes and those little bits of energy that form this body. I mean, when you cut your finger and the body goes to work to heal the cut, do you do anything consciously, or it just happens? The body goes into a repair mode, right? And when you're a child and you're getting used to looking at your hands and studying your feet and feeling different parts of yourself and putting everything in your mouth because it's a way to gain physical experience, right? Now, that's all part of understanding the body. But who is understanding the body? Well, this big ball of energy that's inside that little body is understanding this body. And then as we go through the different stages of our evolution and work through the fact that our childhood was dominated by a particular religion, and that's certainly the case for most people. But at this point where you and I are aware of our energetic self and look at the things that landed in your lap and said, hey, Richard, look at this. Hey, Richard, look at that. And you just dove into those things. It's like the universe said, okay, Richard, you're ready for this. And a book came along and boom, you went to town on it. And I've done the same thing. Mm-hmm. Books came along. And in the 70s, I was reading everything in sight. I bet you I've read thousands of books now. And I used to recommend certain books to my clients who were going through whatever grief and loss or, depression, or loss of sense of self, that kind of thing. There was always some good material. And one of the people who was an inspiration in a broad sense, not comical, but in a broad sense, was Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg and her friend, who had the radio TV show.
Billy Crystal and Robin Williams.
No, from Chicago. Oh my God, the woman from Chicago.
Oh, I can't remember.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm 80 years old now, so my memory goes. It'll come. Okay. It'll come. Anyway, she used to have guests like, well, you mentioned Greg Braden. She used to.
Oprah.
There it is. Boom. Oprah. Yes, Oprah. She had all these people on, and for me, she had some great psychologists like Bradshaw people, John Bradshaw. On the family, healing the shame that binds you. Wonderful stuff for the world I was in, as a psychologist and a personal growth enthusiast. Well, that the 70s, the 80s in particular were explosive with that kind of information. You must have noticed, and I noticed it at the time, you walked through a bookstore and there was these little sections called self-help. And these little sections become monstrous sections, right? They're huge sections. And then these people started to appear on those shows like Oprah's show. And Whoopi was there. And she has her own, spiritual presence. And wonderful people, but they were investigative, they were curious, and they were doing their thing, as you were doing yours and as I was doing mine. But what an experience! Part of as far as I'm concerned, the awakening. We're waking up, and as we help ourselves, and as you said, we're not done. So perfection may be our status, but we're not done, which for me means personal growth. It's just an ongoing process, and you can be enthusiastic about it now because you're building more layers of a spiritual sense of self and of a deeper understanding of who and what we are, and it's you must have those days. You've had those days. You can't believe what your heart just said. Hey, this is how this particular thing works now. Yeah. And everything just changed for you, right? It just shifted on the spot. From my perspective, what I'm about is helping people heal those wounds, all those wounds, that trauma that indoctrinated them into seeing themselves as defective. And as those wounds get healed, one by one, it doesn't have to happen all at once. And people cry out their pain. They grieve those errors, those misapplications of who their value and of who they were. They grieve all of that. And as they grieve that, they become more and more in tune and self-accepting of who and what they are. And that's the healing process. The difficulty from a religious point of view is that one of the buttons they install is when you challenge them, boom, guilt right away. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. You must not doubt. You must not doubt. This is the way it is. Okay? Don't forget to put money in the kitty. Right?
That's right. Although I love this one story of a young man talking about his childhood growing up in the church and how when they would start to pass the plate, and it was the first time that he was experiencing this, he and his brothers, he had like 7 brothers, and the father's down at the end of the pew, and he's watching them as this plate comes across, and of course this boy, he takes money out and he hands it to the next kid, and they take money out, and the father's looking down there going, no, and he's not verbally, but it's more a pantomime. Put it back, put it back. You put money in, you don't take money out. But they didn't know. And I just thought that was a very funny analogy there. I love George Carlin's riffs that I'm watching every so often on either Facebook or YouTube, where he challenges many of these concepts and constructs in religion. And that from my perspective, and I heard, I think it was Bill Maher, I was just listening, I didn't see the video, I was just listening to it, where he talked about how it used to be that we believed in many gods, polytheism, and then somehow we whittled it down to one, okay? And that he says that atheists, they just whittled it down to none. Now, I have had atheists on this program, and from my observation and my experience with them, they're some of the most spiritual people that are on the planet. Okay. They are in touch with themselves in that respect, and they take responsibility. See, here's the big thing that I want to talk with you about when it comes to what you talk about in your book, The Real Sin. To me, it's the unwillingness to accept responsibility for one's choices / actions. That my belief is that we are not puppets on a string being manipulated by forces we do not understand. And when I say that we do not understand, I think it's forces we actually do understand inside, that we know about these forces, okay? But they're not, I forget who, I don't know if it was Stephen Hawking, if it was Einstein, if it was Gandhi, I don't know who said this. But the quote is along the lines of that this is a friendly universe. It's not out to get you. And I believe that. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that, the real sin and this aspect of responsibility as we continue talking with Dr. Maurice Turmel, and we're talking about his book, Breaking the Spell of Religion on Tell Me Your Story.
When God sings the blues, He sings for you and me. When God plays the blues, He prays for all to see that He is part of us, we are of Him too. When God sings the blues, He does for all mankind. Wants us to wake up, to rise and shine. His heart is our own, we are of Him too. And God sings the blues. God sings the blues. shall remember. And God sings the blues. God sings the blues. God sings the blues now. And God sings the blues. Oh, God sings the blues. And God sings the blues. God sings the blues. God sings the blues now. And God sings the blues. Oh, God sings the blues. And God sings the blues. God sings the blues. God sings the blues now. And God sings the blues. Oh, God.
I am Reverend Dr. D. He is Dr. Maurice Turmel, and we're talking about breaking the spell of religion. We've defined it. You'll have to go back to the beginning of the program to get Dr. Mo's definition or interpretation, if you will, of that word. But sin, huge thing. I finally, well, I won't go back to how I used to look at it. Today, it's, I don't believe that we make mistakes because I am perfect, using that definition. I don't make mistakes and I don't sin. What I do is I have learning experiences or life lessons. You can use either term, they're interchangeable. And that's how I grow. Why do we go to school? We go to school to learn, to educate the mind so we can process and hopefully think logically. So, in terms of living my life, that's what I have, our life experiences. Have I had a life that's been free of upset and trauma? No. I've been divorced once already. I've actually moved from Phoenix to Santa Barbara, where I live now. There was a bit of a traumatic experience because it was the first time I actually left home for a long period of time. Now it's been 19 years, and so on and so forth. So, what do you define as the real sin of humanity?
Well, and to teach people not to trust themselves is the grossest sin you can possibly apply to anybody.
Mm.
It's horrendous because without that connection to our own deepest self, our own spiritual self, how are we supposed to govern our lives? How are we supposed to just survive, let alone make contributions to the life and well-being of children that we bring into the world, to caretake the animal populations, to caretake our environment, to caretake our planet? You know, how do we apply those things if we can't value ourselves and see ourselves as part of the project? So anything that teaches people not to trust themselves is a sin in the sense of it's more specifically, it's trauma and it's abuse. It's outright child abuse. And as far as I'm concerned, and I've used these terms in the book, it's a crime against humanity as far as I'm concerned. That's how serious and how deliberate I can be about it. And in one place in my book, I describe Catholicism as a religion, as a battering ram that pounds us into submission. And that's not a good description of a healthy environment that encourages your own personal growth and your own personal evolution. So taking prisoners, it may be good for the cult, it may be good for the religious sect, but it's not good for the individuals, because then they're just following and no difference than, the Jim Jones stuff and the crazy stuff that we've seen on the planet, and with these very harmful groups. But turning people against themselves is the worst sin of all, as far as I'm concerned, because without that trust, without that innate sense of belonging to ourselves, in the sense of that energy that animates our life, and globally to everything that's alive on the planet, and our interconnectedness with each other, and the fact that we're born of the same energy source that animates all life, physical life. But there's a whole spiritual dimension that when we check out from here, we go back and we live something differently. But what we take with us is everything we've learned about evolving our spiritual self, because now we and you must be familiar with them. They talk about different layers: the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension, the seventh. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. Okay, so rather than see that as another mountain to scale, just look at it as the process of evolution that allows us to experience and understand and feel things at wider and wider vistas and levels, and that's pretty exciting. When you and I have had our little awakenings along the way, certain key stages in our life.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that took our breath away. And holy mackerel, we were swimming in some kind of a magical twilight zone for a while, because it was so exhilarating to have that realization. And the power of that realization was we felt it. And when we felt it, we know. There's the word, right? There's the term. When you feel it, you know. It's there. It's real. It's not a philosophy anymore. It's not an idea. It's not a faith. You know. It's real. It's real for you.
There's a beautiful word I love from a book called Stranger in a Strange Land. And it epitomizes what you are talking about. And it's the word, I'll put it in the context, to grok. And I define that as to assimilate into every subatomic particle of your being.
Yeah.
And now you know that you know that you know. Now, here's the kicker, though. Here's the interesting twist on it.
Yeah.
You know that you know that you know that you know. And guess what? You don't have to justify your knowing to anybody. Okay? Now, when I talk about my experiences, I talk about my philosophical leanings and so forth, I usually will preface it by saying, that's mine. All right. I am not putting it on anyone else. I'm not asking you to do anything with it other than hopefully you'll hear it. But it's mine, and it's only mine. And if you choose to incorporate it, that's your choice. I am not here to tell you how to live your life. Far be it. I've got enough trouble running my own life. I'll be damned if I'll try to run yours. And by the way, those are lyrics to a song going back, I think, to the 60s or early 70s. I've got to find that song. I really do. But it's just fascinating. And speaking of songs, Mr. Mo, Dr. Mo, you are also a musician. I want to talk about that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story.
I am what I am is what we have to say. I am that I am, come what may. I believe in heaven and the love I have seen. I believe in all things that God brings about. I believe in love, on that there's no doubt. Do you believe in love? On that we must pray. Think that we're ordinary when we are not. We think love's kindness is not what we're about. Let's believe in magic and all that brings peace. I am what I am is what I have to say. I am that I am is how I must pray. I believe we can do what we came here to do. I believe in me, and I believe in you.
Music is a huge part of our lives, ladies and gentlemen. You hear music at the front end of this program with the title song, which is actually Flesh and Blood. It's not Tell Me Your Story, I'll Do My Best to Understand. Those are great words, and we encourage that. But the book is called Flesh and Blood, which we're all made of. But our guest, Dr. Maurice Turmel, is a musician. Tell us a little bit about the music that you make. How did you start? How did you realize that, hey, I'm having fun doing this. I want to make more. And you've got like 3 or 4, maybe 5, albums or CDs or whatever they call them these days. I've lost track, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm at bandcamp.com. So Dr. Mo 2000 at bandcamp.com. And I wanted to, I'll send you a link to this one song, but the title is, and I'm just quoting you, I Am That I Am. This is one song. My flavor, my musical sense is the blues. My hero, growing up and going through, my evolution as a teenager and discovering music. In 1972, B.B. King released a song called The Thrill Is Gone. And that song just haunted me. And what I realized, and they call it the blues, it's not just about sorrow, it's not just about sadness, but it is about feeling. And it's about feeling, it's the feeling level of life. And that's why I trace my roots there. And so the songs that I've been inspired to write and put together are all about trusting ourselves, are all about personal growth. They all emphasize some aspect of what you and I are talking about. and certainly they emphasize. I have a song called "Occupy Your Heart," right? Occupy your heart. That's a good start. Occupy your soul. You'll never grow old. Occupy your dreams. Those silly schemes. Occupy your heart and your soul, and you'll never grow old.
Mm.
So those are the lyrics. And the lyrics are designed, and they come to me from this deepest self of mine. This is the part of me that puts. I write lyrics down, and when they come, they just come, and then I play with the music part. I have a history of playing music, going back to my 20s anyway, when I first learned the guitar, and I always loved how music made me feel, and that's the power of it. So so I don't know. Probably in my songbook, there's probably 100, 120 songs, and probably at some level of development, 60, 70, or 80 of them, and probably at some higher level of good quality, 40 or 50. They're pretty decent. And so if you've been to that site, then you can sample anything there, and whatever speaks to you. I have a song called "God Sings the Blues," and it's
I saw
about,
that. I like that.
yeah, exactly. It's that energy of us, since we are part of God. God sings the blues because God, or that energy wants to wake up inside of us. That's what the song is about. It's about that deep interconnection, and it's about everything you describe, Richard, and what I describe. It's about that, and yeah, it has a nice rhythm. It has a nice feel. It's got the blues pattern in it, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it reminds me of a passage from a book I read, a series of books, I think it was 5 book series, called "The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East," by Spalding, I think was the gentleman's name who wrote this. And now, how much of it was actually literally on his travels or was imagined, I don't know, don't care, because the messages are what are important, not the specific details. But there was this conversation that he had with Jesus in a cave as they were traveling through a particular area of, I guess, the Middle East or what have you. And it went kind of like this in terms of what you're talking about here. God sings the blues. And the biggest problem that Jesus expressed to Spalding was his frustration, his sadness, his angst over the fact that mankind put him up on a pedestal where he can't be reached. And he didn't want to be put on a pedestal. He wanted to be down with the people. That he was made. And again, I've done some research. I still haven't been able to verify that this human being called Jesus of Nazareth actually existed. There are other authors who have written about how, oh yes, he did. And of
Yeah,
course, they say, well, we have the Bible in the red letter. Please, excuse me, but I won't go into that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
he said that he was made because he was made of the same star stuff, if you will. Neil
yeah,
deGrasse Tyson talks about that. That we're all made of the same stuff, and he was too, and he just wanted to be among the people, to
yeah,
share the message,
yeah,
you know, and yes, to of course fulfill his role, as it were. Again, if you choose to believe the stories, the in that philosophy, that's fine, and more power to you. But I was really struck by that there was that sadness that you couldn't just using this analogy, you couldn't just sit down and have a glass of wine with the guy and just talk about what was going on. Now there will be those who say I have a personal relationship with Jesus or with God or what have you, and this was often brought up when I was working for the station. And I even brought up the point. I said, well, because I was told, Richard, you are not saved. You're not ready to meet God. And I said, well, wait a minute, hold on. You keep talking about this personal relationship. It's a personal relationship between two, not three. So butt out. All right. And I would even use the phrase or the terms, I am saved. Okay, I am ready to meet God. I'm not ready to meet God. I have met him or her or it, what have you, in terms of just conversing with the universe. And by
Yeah.
the way, this program, the universe is asking the questions. I'm just along for the ride. Kind of like your music, you
Yeah.
know? You write those words down, and it's like, I don't know if you would ever consider it channeling, okay? But you're certainly inspired, big time.
Well, inspired to be filled with spirit.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
and
what a life.
in the 80s, the word channeling was bandied about, and it was kind of let's say a step along the way of where we're at now in terms of connected within,
Yeah.
and so that because you're not channeling these kind of disembodied things called Seth or whatever they were at the time,
Right.
and people made a lot of money doing that, but this is that they had the new word, they had the new news. It came from Ra, it came from wherever. Um, Psychologically and spiritually, it comes from within, and that's who and what we are. That is our authentic self, and oh yeah, I wanted to throw this in earlier, but when people like Albert Einstein say stuff like, love is the most powerful force in the universe,
Hmm.
force, that's a powerful word,
Yeah.
force, energy, right? I'm
Hmm.
going to pay attention.
Yeah.
And when Albert Einstein is asked about did he believe in God, and he says, quite frankly, I believe in the God of Spinoza, Baruch de Spinoza. And then he lays out this quote, this most beautiful quote, which is in my book, because I connect to these things.
Hmm.
And you know what the good news is,
Mm.
Richard? Spinoza's books are banned by the Catholic Church because they steer people away from their authority,
Oh.
from their, and you know what my goal is, Richard? To be have my book banned by the Catholic Church. I have aspirations.
I was going to say, if that happens, you have reached the pinnacle. You are on the
Yes,
mountaintop. You know,
yes.
and see, for me, I am a believer in a lot of some of the quotes from the Bible. One of them in particular that talks about, I think this is in, I can't remember, new, old or new. In any event, it says basically, let us sit down and reason together. Okay? And certainly I'm always open to that. One of the frustrations for me, though, when I was asking my questions was I was told to go read the writings of the founding fathers of the faith, which raised two more questions. Number one, who set them up as the founding fathers? Number one. Number two, if I am thinking these questions just as they did, and you're telling me to go read them, does that not, and again, I say this humbly, okay? Does that not put me in the same stratosphere with them because I'm asking those questions? And one of the when I ask my questions and I get these certain answers, the answers don't make any sense. They're illogical. They it's like,
No,
how does that happen? Like what we talked about earlier about the original sin, the rapture, the end of the world, and then you have everybody that's have has their own interpretation of the works. The Church of Christ believes that the everything written in the Bible has already happened, including Revelation. It's done. It's over. It happened in the first and second and fifth and eighth centuries, and it's so on and so forth. Then there are others who say that it's happening now. I remember when I was working for the station, and every time somebody sneezed in Israel, those here in America would go crazy, go, "Oh my God, it's the end of the world! It's the end times. The prophecies are being fulfilled. It says, 'Thou shalt sneeze in Israel, the land of the,'" It's like. And then there are those who believe that it's not going to happen for a long time, and I just continually remind them and say, it also says in that book that you revere so highly, no man knows the day or the hour. So get on with living your life. I
Yes.
mean, what's the point of, they say that if you're going from point A to point B, what's important? Is the destination important, or is it the journey? And they usually say it's the journey. So enjoy the journey of your life and let this stuff go because it's not helping. I'll just throw one final thing in. You talk about religions. Now there is, and I shouldn't say now, it's been here for maybe 20, 30 years, the religion of politics.
Um,
And that's a whole nother indoctrinational process and a whole set of doctrines and dogma and so forth. The only difference is, Maurice, there's no book.
yeah.
It's all vested in one individual who happens to control that particular party or whatever. And you listen to them, you follow what they tell you to do. Kind of, I don't know if Jim Jones had a book that he followed. I don't know if it was the Bible or not. Um, or the, what was it? I'm trying to remember the name of the group that was following the comet Hale-Bopp and that
Oh,
the
right.
spaceship was
Yeah.
behind it, that kind of thing.
Haley Bop. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing where our minds go and how we. I was a Baha'i for a year and a half. I think I said that earlier. One of
Yeah.
my favorite sayings from the founder Baha'u'llah is, "If you reject one of the messengers of God, you reject them all. If you accept one of the messengers of God, you accept them all." And I thought, how profound. And I'm not talking about some of these that we might refer to as cults like Jim Jones and the Haley Bop and so forth and so on, and even the political religions. I'm talking about those that have been around for, if not hundreds, thousands of years. Judaism, Zoroastrianism, you go down the list of the ancient philosophies. And even the one that I think is probably more important than any of the others that also has no book, but is one could follow.
Yeah.
And that's the if you will, the philosophy, as I put it, that nature is our greatest teacher. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yes. Yes. I like that. Are you familiar with Unitarianism?
Oh yes, Unitarianism and Unitarians and what's the?
Universalists.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Unitarian Universalists. Well, the U.S., among others, has got people like Walt Whitman and Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Thoreau. Some great minds, philosophical minds that are call them adherents. My wife and I attend the local chapter because it's as do people who are acknowledged as atheists and agnostics, because the core of what's represented there is that they have their 7 principles, and they're all pretty simple and straightforward. The universality of humanity, the interconnectedness of all of us, and the strongest aspect of who and what they represent is community service.
Mm.
That's what it is. And so, we get we get the experience of community, we get the experience of friendship, we get the experience of being together without judgment. We share stories with each other. The local edition, and it's very small, maybe 40, 50 people in the congregation, but it was established by the heads of our local university, Brock University, which was established in the 1960s. And it was established by then president of the university and the heads of the philosophy departments.
Hmm.
These were the people. These were the people that helped install this chapter. And And supervisor, my former supervisor of fourth year, when I was a fourth year student and I was doing some practical work, he was the head of the counseling center. He trained under Carl Rogers. So he's originally from Wisconsin. He trained under Carl Rogers, who was the voice of client-centered therapy in the 70s. He was a big voice before all the voices of the 80s started coming out.
Mhm.
And Carl Rogers is, in my world, is a very famed and very well recognized. And then you have other names like Abraham Maslow and on and on and on. People of psychology, and Man's Search for Meaning, and just all kinds of stuff. But they they were in service to the community. There was no sin. There was no hell. There was no heaven. And for some people, as I said, agnostic or atheist, then there's no God either. But if that was who you were, or what your belief or your understanding or your knowledge was, and that's where I got my edition of that phrase when you talk about knowledge. It came from the head, and he's deceased now, but the head of the philosophy department of this local university, a longtime member of this Unitarian congregation, and a former president of the congregation. So none of the attachments of negativity, guilt, shame, fear, those kinds of things that are delivered by most religions, none of that present. Who are we? We're people who come together to serve our community.
Yeah.
That's who we are. That's who we are.
And the biblical definition of the word religion, all right, ladies and gentlemen, is taking care of the widows and the orphans, those in need. That's what real, true religion is, if you want to be biblical about it. There was an interesting thing, too, and this goes back probably to 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, during the heyday of anti-Islam sentiment in this country because of 9/11, as well as what happened in 1993 as well, that attempted bombing of the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
And there were people who were concerned about the migration of people who were Islamic coming into this country and then seeking political office and positions of power and so forth and so on, because the folks that were already here were saying, yeah, well, we don't want them instituting their quote unquote Sharia law,
Oh, yeah.
which obviously comes from the Quran. All
Yeah.
right. And I'm sitting here watching the various states, the various legislative bodies around the country, including at our nation's capital. And I'm going, yeah, well, it's real ironic that you don't want them to institute their Sharia law, but it's okay for you to institute yours. It's okay for you to institute and I use the word Sharia because it makes the point.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. And that's one of the things that I find, that's how I see things. There's an irony, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I want to try to get people to understand and see those ironies. Come on, wake up and understand that we are not victims. All right. There is no such thing as a victim. We are where we are as individuals, as a community, as well as a country. We are where we are because of what we did or didn't do. Okay. It's not some other country's fault. Okay. And that's one of the things that I don't struggle with much more these days when it comes to my own personal events in life.
Yeah.
There might be that split second of, oh, darn, wait a minute. No, hold on. You made your choice. I can't, it's like my book comes to bite me in the butt every so often. You made that choice, boy. You made that choice back then that has brought you where you are today.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that that's the other aspect that we are talking about here in terms of this whole business of breaking the spell of religion. that there are no victims here. And I even look at the stories in the Bible, especially, for example, of Judas and Lucifer, the morning star. And God, being omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, has known from the beginning of time, whenever that was, about how all of this was going to unfold. So Lucifer and Judas were set up. And in what some even say, well, but he had no choice. They had no choice. And, and it's like, I just sit here going, but there are no victims, You make your choices and you deal with the consequences, if you will, or the outcome of those choices. And the outcome of the choices that we have made is to bring you this program, but also to have to, unfortunately, wrap it up, which we'll do in just a moment as we continue talking with Dr. Maurice Turmel and breaking the spell of religion on Tell Me Your Story.
Have you heard this song before? Is someone knocking at your door? Time to step on in, time to just begin, time for you to win. We are all part of this new season. We are all here for the same reason, to help prepare the world, to help ourselves unfurl, to occupy our hearts. Occupy your heart, that's a good start. Occupy your soul, you'll never grow old. Occupy your dreams, those silly schemes. Occupy your heart, occupy your soul, find your way home. So far we found it hard to trust, but now we know trusting's a must. Time to come on home and see how much we've grown and occupy our hearts. Just one more thing I say to you. His love for us is all that's true. So let's say it again. That's where to begin, to occupy our hearts. We are a witness to this change. We've come together to arrange those seeds of love cast from above to occupy our hearts. Now is the time for us to shine. This is our chance to realize. So get ready to start and occupy your heart and let it shine. Occupy your heart, that's a good start. Occupy your soul, you'll never grow old. Occupy your dreams, those silly schemes. Occupy your heart, occupy your soul, and find your way home. Occupy your heart, that's a good start. Occupy your soul, you'll never grow old. Occupy your dreams, those silly schemes. Occupy your heart, occupy your soul, and find your way home. Occupy your heart, occupy your soul, and find your way home.
I'm Richard Dugan, and Dr. Mo, I can't thank you enough. I want to have you back. I want to dive more deeply, because there was one thing I wanted to ask you about that I'm going to save for our next conversation, and that is, how do we reclaim our lives? It's a teaser, folks. I didn't put that in there because I want to have him back, and I want you to come back to find out more about the work that he's doing as well through the book that he has written called Breaking the Spell of Religion. Doc, thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. You're an inspiration yourself. You come from such a different track, but boy, I can see the parallels. I can see the parallels and the steps that you've taken and the awakening experiences that you have. So, in some respects, it's kind of like looking in a mirror. Yeah, I know what you've traveled. And
well, thank you. I'm honored for that comparison.
It's inspiring, and both of us are at this point, and will continue to be, hopefully, inspirations for other people to trust themselves, to learn who they are on the inside, and to trust themselves, because we're like, let's use a very simple analogy. We're like flowers in bloom, and some of us are still clustered together, but we're opening, and the more we open, the more surprises there are on the inside, and we haven't seen them all yet. So you haven't seen all of yours. I haven't seen all of mine. I would be very happy to come back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is great for me too.
Well, when we wrap this up, we'll set up our next get together. This is a lot of fun. I really enjoy this. I do have 3 final questions that I want to ask you, that I ask all of my guests. But before I do, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. We're also on YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope you'll subscribe and click notification. We ask that you also go to Amazon and pick up a copy of my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life. It is available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle, with Audible soon to be released. And we also ask that if you can leave us a tip, we would be gratefully appreciative. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. So just leave us a little something if you can. Otherwise, just send us some good thoughts, good prayers, good energy. Well, we can use them all. We'll put them all to good use. And finally, we ask that you take time to go within and listen to that still small voice. With all of that, we go to our final 3 questions for a very special guest. And the first of those questions is, who is Maurice Turmel?
Well, a child of the universe, here to explore, here to discover, here to uncover, here to awaken, and here to share.
Little quote there from Desiderata, eh? I like that. What gets you up in the morning?
The promise of a new day, and what's going to happen on my walk this morning. Because when I go for my walk in the morning, I run into people that I get to say hello to. And if I don't run into people, I run into trees, I run into rabbits, I run into wildlife, and I say hello to them all, and I embrace them all in my heart. That's what I get in the morning.
And finally, what was your best day?
Oh, my best day. Wow. I think it was, I'm going to say it was when I met my wife, and I've been through what you've been through. I was married very young the first time, and I was a messed up person, and that was part of my journey. But when I met my wife, Leslie, which we have now just celebrated our 45th anniversary.
Congratulations.
And she's an inspiration to me. And, and she doesn't take any poop, if I may say that. So if I'm off track on something, she's going to let me know. So she's a strong, caring woman, and she's so at home in this local Unitarian thing because she's been a helper all her life. She used to be a crisis worker. She used to rescue children from abusive homes. She worked with police departments. She was very effective in working with teenagers who were going through addictive processes, and she was very effective in helping teenage children's parents work through those issues. She cares about stuff, and she's rabidly honest. So don't mess with Les.
Well, it seems like you and we are kind of living parallel lives here. My
Yeah.
wife is the same way. Love her dearly, and I'm glad she's in my life to share it, but also to help to keep me on track sometimes. So it's very nice.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks again for joining us, Dr. Mo, and we look forward to having you back again. And we thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, Love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.